Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss the Forever Purge, starring Anna de la Reguera, Cassidy Freeman, Josh Lucas, and Will Patton, and directed by Everardo Gout. Now, before I get into this movie, I went to this movie. Unfortunately, when you see the review, you'll see what I mean. I saw it twice. First time I saw it was it was like the premiere day with with some people, I'll say. It was like half full. And then the second time I went was unfortunately on 4th of July. And we're going to explain why when we get into this movie. And the second thing is, I reviewed the other Purge films before I ever got to the first Purge. And I revisited them. So, is the third one still the best one for me? So far, yeah. As far as without saying anything about this movie, I would say so. Let's get into it and we'll see what I mean. We get a couple coming from Mexico to America named Juan and his wife Adela, played by Ana de la Reguera. Forgive me if I said that wrong. As they arrive to America, the guide tells them to follow the roses, and they arrive in Texas, and illegal immigration is mentioned on the news in the background. And this is when I really get pissed off with this movie, because this is completely focused on Trump's America, which will remind me of that again and again, and it pisses me off. Juan gets a job at, and I'm not saying that I'm Democrat or Republican or any of that, I'm more on the independent side. Juan gets a job at a farm owned by Dylan Tucker, played by Josh Lucas, and his father, Mr. Tucker, played by Will Patton, as he calms down a horse. Meanwhile, Adela works at a meat company while this deals with racism the wrong way, as Dylan is a racist. And I get the impression at the beginning, and his pregnant wife, Cassidy, played by Cassidy Freeman, is not the problem I'm having with this movie. It has Michael fucking Bay's fingerprints, as he's a producer of this movie like he was in the previous ones. And I get the impression he's a Republican and a Trump supporter, might I add, as he brought that up in Transformers Dark of the Moon twice. But it's getting worse in this movie as far as his fingerprints were all over this movie. And I get the impression the director of this movie didn't have that much control on the set as far as directing this movie is concerned. The annual Purge starts on that night, as Dylan hates the Purge. So it makes me think he's not a racist, but maybe he is, I don't know. And so does Cassidy and their whole family, as they lock down while Adela and Juan go to a safe house for the night. While the Purge is going on, and the beginning as we're introduced to the characters is not great, as I don't like the American characters, but the Mexican characters are not as interesting either, as they're stuck in this piece of shit movie. While checking the cameras, Dylan hears something in the garage as some purgers go into the barn, and I swear to God, if they kill any of the horses, it would have pissed me off even more than this stupid plot of this movie. But luckily they don't, as they unleash a horse the next morning. Adela gets some air outside on the roof and grabs a gun as a truck of purgers come by the safe house and threaten to take back America as it was. And how did Adela handle a gun pretty good? It might come back later, it might not, and I'm personally I don't really give a shit, as this next day comes and the annual Purge is over, as Juan with his driver go to the Tucker house to go to work, and this movie is bullshit, and I thought, fuck this fucking movie. The next day begins, and the news reporter gets shot on the head after the Purge is over and done with, as the new founding fathers of America create a thing called the Forever Purge, where it goes on 24 hours a day. Adela gets to work, and so does Dylan, as Adela finds a goat in a cage and tries to let it out, as it's a trap, and some purgers almost purge her to death until her boss at the meat place, Darius, saves her life and kills the Purgers and gets arrested by the cops, and Dylan and the Tuckers get held hostage by an employee believing in the Forever Purge named Kirk, while Juan and TT arrive. That's his name, by the way, I'm not making this up. Arrive, and Kirk kills Mr. Tucker, and they come in and kill the Purgers as more are on the way. And something Mr. Tucker said about the new founding fathers that I found interesting is a bunch of rich, fat motherfuckers in Washington, D.C., as it's created by those motherfuckers. And while Adela is in a back of a truck, while a couple of Purgers saying, "Let me go," and the guards, as they escape, almost kills Adela and Darius. But they kill the motherfuckers as they get picked up by Dylan, Cassidy, Dylan's sister Harper, Juan, and TT, as they escape to get Adela, managing to go with them after killing some Purgers. And this movie makes me so goddamn angry, as this is so far the worst in the series. I don't care what people say. This is the worst in the series. And this movie is so fucking ugly at looking at this plot, making no fucking sense, as it's too insensitive of Michael fucking Bay to release this movie on the 4th of July holiday weekend. And it's a shame Universal opened this against Fast 9 or F9 The Fast Saga and The Boss Baby Family Business, and those two movies are better than this piece of shit. And this whole thing reminds me of what happened in the Capitol earlier this year. That's how much this movie is full of shit, because they're taking a hell of a lot about politics, which I can't help but think about while watching this movie, which makes me so angry. The Mexican and Canadian borders open up for 6 hours, as there's 3 hours left, and Dylan and Juan talk honestly about what Dylan believes in, which is leaving each other alone between Americans and Mexicans, which is a bullshit thing to believe. And as some Purgers get to their truck and almost pull them over until Harper shows them they're one of the Purgers as a fake out, which makes perfect sense to get them the fuck away from them. They get to El Paso, Texas, and there's a hell of a lot of purging going on around as they go around town, because their truck is blocked, and the military tries to stop the Purgers as they fight back, which is so stupid for the fucking Purgers to keep purging. And our protagonists stop at a movie theater as a tank shoots the people outside, while Cassidy and Adela are locked in the movie theater, and they go inside and we see Dracula playing in the theater, as there's a bat trap that'll probably scare the shit out of people in the theater. And they go in the projection room as a couple of people show up in like vampire costumes, I'll say, out of the blue, and Adela shoots them dead. Meanwhile, Dylan, Harper, Juan, and TT encounter some racist motherfucking rednecks and shoot TT in the stomach, as he unfortunately dies, and they get shot at by the military. And Dylan, Juan, and Harper, as they escape, and they meet Adela and Cassidy at a building with the Rose, as it's another safe house, and the people protecting the safe house scares Harper while she's pregnant. But the good news is they're together again, and the bad news is this plot makes no fucking sense, as this is just a pile of shit. They get out of the safe house as they are not safe, and wait for a truck to go to Mexico, and it arrives while a redneck's backup is coming to the redneck as they get to the border of Mexico. Dylan sees the redneck following them to the Mexican border, while something happens to Cassidy while Harper protects her to the border, as Dylan and Juan and Adela fight off the rednecks, and they get in an abandoned building, and they fight and kill the mom before Juan is killed by a motorcycle, and the redneck takes Adela outside and uses her as bait, and she speaks Spanish and says to kill the pig, as he says speak English, and Juan gets him to kill and kills his ass off, and they get to Mexico, and Cassidy has her baby, and Dylan arrives and meets the baby for the first time, And this climax, oh my god. I I can't believe this fucking film. Let's just get to the rating. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 1.4 out of 10. This is by far the worst in the Purge series. I don't care what people say, as this plot makes no fucking sense, as this is an ugly film. It's insensitive of Universal and producer Michael fucking Bay to release a movie about wiping out Mexicans, as they have every right to live in any country they want, and I feel like they were cheating with releasing this, Boss Baby, and Fast and Furious 9 within a couple of weeks against each other. With an exception of A Quiet Place Part 2, Cruella, Peter Rabbit, and Judas and the Black Messiah, a trip to the movie theaters has been one bad movie after another, and hopefully Black Widow is a much better movie than any of the bad films I had to go to the theater for in a while. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and I hope this is the final one, that's what I've been hearing. But until, if we ever get another one, toodaloo, Sandins.